everyone, it is Xiao Yu. Picture this. You are a top military surgeon who drops dead on a classified mission and wakes up hog-tied in a moldy woodshed, dressed in a cheap wedding gown about to be shipped off as a proxy bride to a dying man. Your own grandmother cracked your skull open to keep you quiet. Your cousin is smirking in the corner, and the groom he has got maybe 12 hours left to live. Most people would panic. This woman starts sawing through her ropes with a piece of broken porcelain. Let's go. A dull, skull-splitting ache throbbed at the back of my head. Deafening wedding horns and a woman's shrill curses assaulted my ears. I forced my heavy eyelids open, my vision slowly coming into focus. I was no longer in my sterile, high-tech military medical lab. Instead, I was in a dim, dilapidated woodshed reeking of mold. Worse, I was hog-tied with rough hemp rope and tossed on the damp dirt floor like a sack of garbage. Before I could process the situation, a flood of foreign memories crashed into my brain. Greet, I've time traveled. 1 second, I was the chief medical officer on a classified military rescue mission. The next, I was Shen Jieyin, orphan peasant girl in the Great Chu dynasty, tormented her whole life by a toxic grandmother and a hypocritical cousin, and the chaotic noise outside, a ridiculous death proxy marriage. Xiao Jingyan, a rugged local hunter, had originally been betrothed to my cousin Shen Wenru. He'd paid an exorbitant 20 taels of silver as a bride price, which had my money-grubbing grandmother, Granny Qian, grinning from ear to ear. But 3 days ago, Xiao Jingyan was mauled by a wild beast. The town doctor took his pulse and declared he wouldn't survive the night. Granny Qian panicked. She refused to cough up the 20 taels. But she also wasn't about to let her precious Wenru become a teenage widow. So they targeted the original owner of this body. They drugged her, stuffed her into a cheap red wedding dress. And when she woke up and resisted, Granny Qian bashed her skull in with a wooden club. Enter me. The little bitch has a thick skull. She's still breathing. Wenru, throw the veil over her head. The Xiao family's cart is here. The door creaked open, blinding sunlight, and a bitter voice spilled into the shed. Leading the way was the heavy-set Granny Qian. Behind her was a girl in a brand-new cotton dress, wearing a silver hairpin. She looked delicate, but her eyes betrayed a sickeningly calculating nature. This was Shen Wanru, the cousin who stole everything from the original owner and was now sending her to die in her place. I lay still, my breathing steady, eyes half closed. My right hand, hidden behind my back, was already moving. Years of hovering on the edge of life and death kicked my military instincts into overdrive. My fingers brushed against a sharp piece of broken porcelain. With a flick of my wrist, I began silently sawing at the ropes. Grandma, be gentle. Poor Jiayin, losing her parents so young. If Xiao doesn't make it through the night, how will she survive? Wanru sighed, pinching a red veil, though she couldn't hide the smirk tugging at her lips. Poor my ass, she's leeched off the Shen family for years. It's time she paid us back. Granny Qian spat on the ground. 20 taels. With that money, your brother can go to the academy, and you'll be a high-class lady. Marrying into the Xiao family is a blessing she earned in her past life. Wanru crouched beside me, dropping her voice to a malicious whisper. Stop playing dead, Jiayin. Just go be a grave warmer for that dying hunter. Don't ruin my bright future. She reached out to smother my face with the musty red veil. Just as her fingers brushed my nose snap, the frayed rope gave way. I exploded upward without warning. My right hand shot out like a steel vise, locking onto Wenru's wrist. You are absolutely right. It is such a great blessing. You should keep it for yourself. My eyes were dead cold as Wenru stared at me in sheer terror. I raised my left hand and backhanded her with the full, bone-jarring force of military CQC smack. The crisp sound echoed in the tiny shed. Wanru shrieked, crumpling to the floor like a rag doll. Half her face swelled up instantly. Ah, my face, she wailed in disbelief. Granny Qian froze. How could this submissive punching bag suddenly turn into the Grim Reaper? You little whore, you dare hit my granddaughter, I'll skin you alive. Snapping out of her shock, Granny Qian grabbed a thick wooden club from the corner and swung it wildly at my head. Old hag, you want to try me? I sneered, shifting my weight to effortlessly dodge the clumsy swing. Closing the distance, my left hand parried her wrist, while my right foot slammed into the back of her knee. Egg! Her legs buckled, and she dropped hard to her knees. Without missing a beat, I twisted her arm behind her back, applying a textbook joint lock. With a sickening pop, I dislocated her shoulder. Help! Granny Chen squealed like a slaughtered pig. The club rolled away as cold sweat poured down her face. I dusted off my hands, looking down at the pathetic duo in my eyes. These petty domestic squabbles weren't even a warm-up. I crouched down, forcing eye contact with the old woman. Where is my household registry and the severance agreement? When merging with the original memories, I realized Granny Chen had forced the original owner to sign a document severing all ties with the Shen family just yesterday, afraid she might run back and demand a cut of the 20 taels. It was a golden ticket. With it, I was legally free from this era's suffocating filial piety laws. You jinx! Dream on, she hissed, gasping in pain. Not going to talk. I lightly rested my fingers on her dislocated arm. Right now, it's just popped out of the socket. I can pop it back, but if I push a little harder and shatter the joint completely, do you think your precious grandson will want to wipe the ass of a cripple? Her eyes rolled back in agony, her malice finally giving way to sheer terror. Looking into my dead, emotionless eyes, she realized I wasn't bluffing. She began to tremble. It is in the pouch. In my shirt. Let go. You psycho. I yanked a faded pouch from her robes. Inside was the thumb-printed severance agreement, and surprisingly, a proxy betrothal contract with Wenru's fingerprint on it, clearly outlining their bait-and-switch scheme perfect. Hard evidence, I tucked the papers into my robes and kicked the shed door wide open. The yard was already swarming with nosy villagers. Outside the gate stood an old ox cart and a desperately anxious middle-aged man, Uncle Jiang, the Xiao family's loyal servant. When they saw me walk out completely unharmed in my cheap wedding dress, while the agonizing groans of the Shen women echoed from the shed, the crowd went dead silent. Jian, what is going on? A neighbor stammered. I walked to the center of the yard, my gaze sweeping the crowd before landing on the servant. My voice rang out, clear and unwavering. Uncle Jiang, let everyone here be a witness. The Xiao family paid 20 taels to marry my cousin Shen Wenru. But now that Xiao Jingyan is critically injured, the Shen family doesn't want to return the money, nor do they want Wenru to be a widow. So they tried to force me, an orphan, to take her place. When I refused, they knocked me out and tied me up. The yard erupted. A proxy bride. That old hag is pure evil, trading a life for 20 taels, despicable. The villagers' whispers slapped Granny Chen harder than I did as she dragged herself out of the shed. Clutching her dangling arm, she shrieked. Don't listen to her lies. She ate our food and slept under our roof. What is wrong with taking her sister's place? It is her duty to repay us. We'll pay you, I laughed, my gaze cutting through her like a scalpel. My parents died when I was 3. For 10 years, I woke up before dawn to do all your dirty work. You even sold the 3 acres of prime farmland my parents left me to fund your grandson's schooling. I owe you nothing. I slammed the severance agreement onto the stone table. Everyone is my witness, as of yesterday. She forced me to sign this. Shen Jiayin is officially cut off from the Shen family. We are done. Granny Chen trembled with rage. Fine. Get out then. Let's see where a ruined orphan like you can go to beg for scraps. Who said anything about begging? I spun around, strode out the gate, and vaulted smoothly onto the ox cart. Uncle Zhang, since the Shen family took the bride price, I accept this marriage. I looked at him, my tone leaving no room for argument. Take me to the Xiao house. I'll save Xiao Jingyan's life. Waiting to die wasn't in my vocabulary. Since I was stuck in this era, I was going to play by my own rules. The rickety ox cart pulled up to a dilapidated mud brick cabin at the edge of the mountains. It looked even poorer than the Shen house. I am sorry, Jiayin. The doctor said he only has a day or 2 left, Uncle Zhang said, wiping his eyes. But even when he passes, you'll still be the rightful wife of the Xiao family. I won't let you starve." "Save the eulogy, take me to him," I said, hopping off the cart and ripping off the ridiculous red veil. My eyes were sharp and focused. Uncle Jiang blinked in surprise and pushed open the creaky wooden door. The heavy stench of copper blood and bitter herbs hit me instantly. I strode into the dim room and approached the bed. A man lay there. Even pale as a ghost and unconscious, his bone structure was striking. Sharp jawline, straight nose, and brows like drawn swords. His physique was massive, and his hands were covered in thick calluses, not from farm tools, but from years of wielding heavy weaponry. This guy was no ordinary hunter. Me eyes darted to his right leg. It was mangled, the flesh torn open to the bone, with dark necrosis creeping in. In an era without sterile environments or antibiotics, the doctors were right to issue a death sentence. Boil water, get the strongest liquor you have, and boil clean cotton cloth until it is sterile. "Bring it all in here," I barked, my voice carrying the absolute authority of a commanding officer. Uncle Jiang jumped. "Jia-yin, what are you? If you want him to live, move." I cut him off, and nobody comes in without my permission. Hearing him scramble outside to chop wood, I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and focused my consciousness. When I time traveled, my modern medical inventory had somehow bound itself to my mind. With a thought, several items materialized in my hands, disguised in ancient porcelain bottles and wooden boxes. Surgical-grade antiseptic, broad-spectrum antibiotic powder, suturing thread, and a set of precision surgical scalpels. With this, he had a fighting chance. I quickly grabbed scissors to cut away the blood-soaked fabric around his leg, just as I reached out to apply a local anesthetic. A massive hand clamped onto my wrist like a bear trap. The grip was bone-crushing. Startled, I looked up. Xiao Jingyan, who was supposed to be in a deep coma, had his eyes wide open. They were pitch black, not glassy, but razor-sharp, radiating the lethal, paranoid-killing intent of a cornered wolf. "Who are you? Who sent you?" His voice was raspy, dripping with deadly suspicion. For a man suffering from severe blood loss and a raging fever to muster this kind of strength, he was definitely a veteran of the battlefield. "I am the bride your family bought for 20 taels," I said, ignoring the pain in my wrist and meeting his glare dead on. My free hand pressed firmly against a vital pressure point on his neck. "Let go if you don't want to die. I can save your life, and I can save your leg." At the mention of saving his leg, a flicker of shock crossed his cold eyes. He stared at me, looking for a lie, but I just stared back with the absolute, unshakable arrogance of a top-tier surgeon. His defenses cracked slightly. Finally, his strength gave out, his hand dropped, and he slipped back into unconsciousness. Smart man. I rubbed my bruised wrist and went to work. I aggressively flushed the wound with antiseptic, then grabbed my scalpel. With rapid fluid motions, I excised the necrotic black tissue, navigating perfectly around his major arteries by pure muscle memory. Finally, I closed the wound with immaculate layered sutures. After bandaging him up, I pulled out a broad-spectrum antibiotic pill disguised as herbal medicine, dissolved it in warm water, and fed it to him. Lastly, I took out acupuncture needles, my hands a blur as I sealed his major acupoints to stabilize his vitals. By the time I finished, I was drenched in sweat. This body was far too weak creak. The door edged open, and Uncle Jiang peeked in, holding a basin of hot water. When he saw the bowl of black, necrotic blood, the pristine bandages, and noticed the steady rise and fall of Xiao Jingyan's chest, his jaw hit the floor. "His fever, it broke. He is breathing normally." Uncle Jiang stared at me in wild ecstasy. "The infection is cleared. As long as the fever stays down for the next 2 days, he'll live," I said flatly, wiping my hands on a towel. Thud. Uncle Jiang dropped to his knees. "You are an angel sent from heaven." I pulled him up and delivered my pre-rehearsed excuse. "Don't mention it. When my father was alive, he saved a wandering doctor who taught me some life-saving folk remedies and acupuncture. I was just throwing a Hail Mary, glad it worked." The mysterious wandering doctor was the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card for time travelers. With my medical skills even starting from the bottom of the barrel, I was going to dominate this dynasty. 3 days later, morning sunlight filtered through the oiled paper windows. I sat by a clay stove, fanning the flames beneath a bubbling pot of herbal medicine I'd foraged from the mountains. The man who was supposed to be dead was now propped up against the wall, his dark eyes tracking my every move. His fever was gone, and thanks to my modern sutures and meds, his leg was actually scabbing over. He hadn't spoken much over the past 3 days, but his hawkish gaze felt like he was constantly dissecting me. Medicine's ready. Drink it while it is hot. I handed him a bowl of dark liquid. He didn't take it. His gaze shifted from the bowl to my face. You know medicine, and not just some rural folk remedies. Who exactly are you? His low voice carried a heavy, commanding authority. I met his stare without flinching. What think I am a mountain demon? If I wanted you dead, you'd be rotting in the ground by now. You just need to know I am Shen Jiayin, the woman keeping you alive. That is enough. Before he could push the interrogation further, a repulsive theatrical wail echoed from the yard outside. Oh, my poor Jiayin, an orphan, and now a teenage widow. Your grandmother is here to take you home. Crash! The flimsy courtyard gates were kicked open. I paused, a frigid smile touching my lips. Looks like they didn't learn their lesson. I put the bowl down. Some stray dogs are barking outside. I'll go handle it. Don't move your leg. I stepped outside, pulling the door firmly shut behind me. In the yard, Granny Chen had her arm in a makeshift sling and was dabbing at her dry eyes with a dirty rag. Next to her, Wanru was dressed in mourning white, wearing a white flower in her hair. They had even dragged the village chief along, plus a crowd of gawkers. Wow, Granny, with a set of lungs like that, people might think someone in the Shen family died. I sneered, crossing my arms from the porch. Seeing me alive and well, Wanru froze, her eyes flashing with jealousy before she slapped on her fake pity. Jiayin, don't be too heartbroken. We're so sad about Xiao passing away. Grandma was worried about you being alone in the woods, so we brought the village chief to escort you back home. Take me home. I laughed coldly. I remember signing a severance agreement 3 days ago. The Shen family's threshold is far too high for a peasant like me to cross. Dropping the act, Granny Chen pointed a trembling finger at me. You ungrateful little tramp. If it weren't for our blood, I'd leave you to rot. Since the sick bastard is dead, you think you get to stay and play house. I looked at the village chief, feigning innocence. Chief, is there a law in the Great Chu dynasty that states a widow must be dragged back to her maiden home before her husband's body is even cold? The chief frowned. Auntie Qian, this is against the rules. Since Jiayin married into the Xiao family, the property belongs to her now. Her Granny Qian screeched, her greed fully unmasked. What does a little girl know? That hunter has been hoarding furs and silver for years. It all belongs to the Shen family. Besides, the butcher in town lost his wife and is willing to pay 10 taels for a replacement. I am doing her a favor by taking the Xiao money and marrying her off again. The crowd gasped. The butcher was notorious for drinking and beating his wives half to death. The Shen family wasn't here to save her. They were here to rob a dead man and traffic his widow. I see. My low, chilling laugh made the hair on the back of their necks stand up. You figured Xiao Jingyan was dead, so you came to steal his stash and sell me off for 10 taels. Is that right? So what? You don't have a choice. Granny Qian lunged toward the cabin door. Get out of my way! I am going in for the silver! Creaked before her hand touched the wood. The door swung open from the inside. A wave of suffocating, blood-soaked aura washed over the yard. Dropping the temperature by 10 degrees, Xiao Jingyan stood in the doorway. Leaning slightly against the frame, pale but towering like a mountain, his dark eyes swept over the intruders like a king looking at insects. His voice hit like thunder. Since when do a pack of stray mutts get to claim my property? Ghost, he is a zombie. Granny Qian shrieked, collapsing into the mud and scrambling backward. Wanru went pale, covering her mouth to suppress a scream. The village chief and the crowd stood paralyzed. The man who was dead to rights was standing. Who said my husband was dead? I stepped gracefully to Xiao Jingyan's side, casually supporting his uninjured arm, and shot a death glare at Granny Qian. You broke into my home, cursed my husband to die, and tried to rob us. Do you think I am a pushover? Before anyone could react, I closed the distance, grabbed Granny Qian by the collar, and hauled her half upright. "Woo, what are you doing? The chief is watching," she stammered, terrified by my eyes. "I am beating some respect into you." With my left hand locking her neck, my right hand swung in wide, punishing arcs. Smack, smack, smack! 3 deafening slaps rang out. Using military-grade torque, they didn't draw blood, but the concussive force scrambled her brains. She slumped down, seeing stars, too dizzy to even scream. "And you." I tossed the old lady aside and turned to Wanru, who was trying to sneak away. I flashed forward like a ghost, blocking her path. As she looked up in sheer horror, I drove a kick directly into the pressure point above her knee. Ah, Wanru dropped to her knees in the mud. "If you like that 10-tail butcher so much, marry him yourself," I whispered coldly. "Target me again, and I'll break both your legs." Trembling like a leaf, tears and snot ruined her pretty face. She didn't dare utter a sound. I stood tall and looked at the stunned official. "Chief, you saw it all. I am legally severed from the Shens. From now on, if they step foot on my property, I am fully within my rights to break their legs and drag them to the magistrate." The chief snapped out of his daze. "Jian is right, Auntie Chen. You've gone too far. Get out of here." Knowing her heist was busted and having eaten a brutal beating, Granny Chen let Wanru drag her away in utter humiliation. With absolute, overwhelming force, the circus was shut down. I turned back to find Xiao Jingyan staring at me. The paranoia in his eyes had faded slightly, replaced by a complex mix of intense curiosity and quiet approval. I raised an eyebrow at him, my tone lightening. "Show is over. Now get back inside and take your meds." After taking inventory of the house, I realized we were broke. The rice bin was empty, and there were only 2 dried rabbits left. For his leg to heal properly, he needed protein and top-tier herbs. I grabbed a machete and strapped on a bamboo basket. "Rest up. I am going to the mountains." Xiao Jingyan watched me from the bed. "The deep woods are crawling with beasts." "Don't go too far," he actually warned. "Don't worry, animals can't kill me," I called back without turning around. With my PhD in botany and modern survival training, the deep mountains were a gold mine. In half a day, not only did I gather premium herbs, but I also spotted a century-old wild ginseng growing on a cliff face. Using a bone needle, I meticulously extracted it, keeping every single rootlet intact. This was my startup capital. The next morning, I hit the largest pharmacy in town, Jishi Tang. As soon as I walked in, chaos erupted. "Make way. Get Dr. Pei." Servants rushed in carrying a wealthy, obese older man on a wooden board. He was clutching his chest, his face purple, eyes rolled back, and he had stopped breathing. The young manager and head doctor, Pei Jiqiang, checked his pulse and went pale. His heart stopped. "It is too late. Prepare the funeral." The servants burst into tears. This was the town's richest merchant. If he died, they were all getting fired or worse. "Stop crying. He is not dead yet." I barked out the order, shoved past the crowd, and ripped open the merchant's robes. "Woman, show some respect for the dead," Pei Jiqiang yelled angrily. "Shut up! You are letting him die!" I snapped. I locked my hands over his sternum and began aggressive, rhythmic CPR chest compressions. Under the cover of my wide sleeves, I stealthily slipped a modern nitroglycerin pill under his tongue. "Are you insane? Stop hitting the master." The head servant drew a club to strike me. Suddenly gasped, a massive intake of air tore from the merchant's throat. His eyes snapped open, his chest heaving as the purple hue vanished from his skin. "He is alive. The master is alive." The servant dropped his club, screaming in joy. Dr. Pei stumbled backward into his medicine cabinet, eyes bugging out. "His heart is beating. This is impossible, miss." "What kind of god-tier technique is this?" "An ancestral acupressure technique, paired with my family's heart pill." I lied smoothly, stepping back, Tears streamed down the revived merchant's face. He bowed to me. "You are a living goddess. You dragged me back from the gates of hell." He pulled 500 taels silver notes from his pouch. "Please, accept this 500 taels as my thanks." I took the cash without a second thought. I earned it. I then placed the pristine century-old ginseng on the counter. Dr. Pei, buying herbs, freshly dug, perfect condition. Pei's breathing hitched. This was a legendary item. Yes, absolutely. His arrogance was entirely gone, replaced by deep reverence. "I will offer 300 taels. Consider it the price of your friendship." Deal. 800 taels. My first pot of gold was secured. I bought fine flour, rice, fresh meat, and a brand new iron wok ready to kickstart my commercial empire. When I returned to the cabin at dusk, with a basket overflowing with premium groceries, Xiao Jingyan was leaning against the doorframe, whittling a stick with a dagger. He eyed the new wok and the massive cuts of meat, raising an eyebrow. "Relax, I didn't rob a bank. I made clean money with my skills," I said, firing up the stove. "You are recovering, so we're eating well tonight." Soon, a rich, savory pot of braised pork ribs over steaming white rice was served. Xiao Jingyan ate quickly, but with a deeply ingrained aristocratic elegance. He wasn't just a hunter, but I didn't care about his secrets. I only cared about getting rich. Over the next 2 weeks, I bought cheap bulk herbs, cotton, and beeswax, turning the yard into a mini factory. I was going to introduce 3 revolutionary products to this era. Pound it finer. "No chunks," I instructed Xiao Jingyan, who was crushing herbs with a mortar and pestle. His leg was mostly healed, and he willingly acted as my muscle. I spread a sticky herbal paste onto small strips of sterilized cotton cloth. Product 1, the herbal band-aid. No more dumping raw powder on wounds and wrapping them in dirty rags. This was sterile, adhesive, and stopped bleeding instantly. Product 2, the cold relief pill. Using concentrated willow bark extract aspirin, I made a tiny pill to replace the massive bowls of bitter sludge they usually drank for fevers. Product 3, Snow Jade Skin Cream infused with pearl powder and herbal extracts. Women's beauty products were the ultimate cash cow in any era. I took my prototypes back to Jishi Tang. Dr. Pei brought me into the VIP back room. "I didn't waste time. Your pharmacy is losing ground to competitors. I have 3 exclusive formulas that will make Jishi Tang the monopoly of the Great Chu dynasty." I pulled out a knife, slashed the back of my own hand, and applied the herbal band-aid. Dr. P.A. watched in awe as it instantly stopped the bleeding and adhered perfectly. I then showed him the pills and the skin cream. He stood up, trembling with excitement, and bowed deeply. "Miss Shen, you are a genius. What are your terms?" "Simple." I sipped my tea. "I provide the tech, you handle production, logistics, and sales. After overhead, we split the net profit 50 divided by 50. I needed his backing to protect my wealth from corrupt nobles. Pei knew the recipe was worth far more than 50%, so he signed immediately. Within 2 months, the 3 miracle drugs hit the market, and the region went absolutely insane. Mercenaries fought over the band-aids. Rich families hoarded the cold pills. The skin cream had a 6-month wait list among the aristocracy. Money flowed in like a tsunami. When Pei sent a mahogany box containing my first month's dividend, 5,000 taels of silver, I was lounging in a wicker chair in the yard. Xiao Jingyan had just finished an explosive, terrifyingly precise martial arts routine. He stopped, looking at the mountain of cash, his eyes dark and complex. "Shen Jiayin," he said, his voice dropping an octave, practically vibrating with authority. He walked toward me, his massive frame casting a shadow over me. "No farm girl possesses godlike medical skills or the brains to build a commercial empire like this. Who are you?" I picked up a stack of bills, fanning myself lazily, and met his predatory gaze with a smirk. "Doesn't matter who I am. What matters is your leg is healed." I stood up, tapping his solid chest with the stack of cash. "Since you are eating my food and spending my money, you are my kept man now." His pupils contracted. Then a highly aggressive, low chuckle rumbled from his chest, the first time I'd seen him truly smile. Suddenly, the atmosphere shattered. It was a moonless night. Dozens of black-clad assassins silently vaulted over the walls. As a sword sliced through the wooden door, I reached for my heavy tranquilizer powder. But a shadow moved faster than me. With a roaring battle cry, Xiao Jingyan launched into the enemy. He was a force of nature, unarmed, moving like lightning. He disarmed and brutalized the elite killers in seconds, crushing bones and snapping necks. As the dust settled, the thundering of hooves shook the ground. Over 100 heavily armored cavalrymen surrounded the house. They dismounted and dropped to one knee in unison, their voices shaking the earth. "We are late to your rescue. Welcome back, Prince of the North." I leaned against the doorframe, twirling a dagger, looking at the man who had just slaughtered a dozen assassins barehanded. Xiao Jingyan turned to me, his eyes burning. The seventh prince of Great Chu, Xiao Jingyan. He walked toward me, exuding the suffocating aura of royalty. A year ago, the crown prince colluded with enemy states, cut off my supplies, and hunted me down. I was poisoned and crippled, hiding here to survive. Jiayin, the capital, is a death trap. Are you afraid to come with me? I laughed out loud. I reached into my robes and tossed a solid gold medallion at him, the token of the wealthiest merchant guild in the country. Afraid, not in my vocabulary. I stepped up beside him. In the last 6 months, Jishi Tang has expanded across the empire. I control half the nation's cash flow. You want your revenge. You can't do it without your sugar mama funding your army. What, Prince? Were you planning to ditch me? Xiao Jingyan caught the gold medallion, the coldness in his eyes melting into burning affection. He pulled me roughly into his arms. With a wife like you, the empire is already mine. 3 months later, the imperial capital, the throne room. The old emperor was in a coma. The treacherous crown prince was standing before the court, preparing to read the Edict of Succession. By the mandate of heaven. Boom. The heavy oak doors of the throne room were kicked open. Shattering the eunuch's announcement, the court gasped. Standing in the sunlight was Xiao Jingyan, clad in black and gold royal armor, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. I stood beside him in a sweeping crimson gown, radiating calm, absolute authority. Behind us stood the terrifying Northern Iron Cavalry. Seventh brother, You are dead! The crown prince shrieked, falling back into the throne, his face devoid of color. Sorry to disappoint you, brother. I am alive, and my legs work perfectly. Xiao Jingyan drew his sword, the steel singing as he pointed it at the dais. It is time to pay for the blood of the 10,000 soldiers you betrayed in the north. Cornered, the crown prince's face twisted in malice. The emperor is dying. I am the new king. This is treason, guards. Fire the poison arrows. The royal guards swarmed the upper balconies, unleashing a rain of toxic arrows. Pathetic. With a flick of my wrist, I threw a handful of specially formulated chemical neutralizing smoke bombs. Thick white smoke instantly engulfed the room, dissolving the deadly neurotoxins midair. Simultaneously, Xiao Jingyan surged forward like a god of war, his blade carving a bloody path straight up the steps, shattering the guards' weapons effortlessly. Using the chaos, I slipped into the back chambers. The old emperor lay on the bed, his lips black. It wasn't a disease. It was a slow-acting snake venom. Move. I shoved the useless royal doctors aside, pulled a syringe of anti-venom disguised as a pill from my inventory, and forced it down the emperor's throat. My silver needles flashed, hitting his pressure points to jumpstart his heart. Outside, the fighting stopped. Xiao Jingyan had his blade pressed against the crown prince's throat. If you kill me, the entire country will hunt you down for murdering the king. The crown prince spat, desperate. Who said I was dead? You treacherous bastard. A weak but furiously thunderous voice echoed from the chambers. Under the terrified gaze of the entire court, I walked out supporting the old emperor, whose color had finally returned. Father, no, the doctors said there was no cure. The crown prince's knees gave out. He collapsed, finally realizing it was over. The emperor coughed violently, pointing a shaking finger. You colluded with enemies, killed your brothers, and poisoned your own father. Strip him of his title and throw him in the dungeon. The seventh prince has saved the crown. He is the new heir apparent. The court fell to their knees like falling wheat, shouting praises to the new crown prince. Xiao Jingyan sheathed his sword. He didn't look at the golden throne. Instead, he turned and strode down the steps toward me. In front of the highest officials of the land, the future ruler of the empire took my hand, his eyes burning with absolute devotion. Jayin, I will share half of this empire with you. I smiled, lacing my fingers through his, as we looked out over the pinnacle of power. From an abused rural orphan to the wealthiest magnate in the nation, to the highest seat of power in the empire. My time-traveling counterattack was finally complete. The story ends in a throne room. A prince with a drawn sword, a woman in crimson standing beside him, an empire reclaimed. I will share half of this empire with you. Spectacular, cinematic, the kind of ending that makes you want to stand up and applaud. But I want to rewind, past the cavalry and the palace coup and the smoke bombs, back to a moldy woodshed, back to a girl on a dirt floor with a cracked skull and rope burns on her wrists. Because that is where the real story lives. When Shen Jiayin wakes up in that shed, she has nothing. Truly, absolutely nothing. No family. They're the ones who put her there. No money. They stole her inheritance years ago. No status. She is an orphan at the very bottom of society's hierarchy. She doesn't even have her own body. She is wearing a dead girl's skin and a dead girl's debts, and her hands are literally tied behind her back. What does she do? She finds a shard of broken porcelain, and she starts cutting. She doesn't wait for rescue, she doesn't pray, she doesn't bargain. She assesses her environment, identifies her one available resource, and she acts. That shard of porcelain is the most important object in this entire story. More important than the century-old ginseng. More important than the gold merchant medallion. More important than the emperor's decree. Because it represents the fundamental truth that Shen Jiayin carries through every scene. You are never truly powerless as long as you refuse to stop thinking. The ropes aren't the real prison. The real prison is the belief that you can't escape. And Jiayin never, not for a single second, accepts that belief now. Let's talk about what she does next, because this is where the story gets really interesting. She saves Xiao Jingyan's life, a man she has never met, a man whose family essentially purchased her. She could have let him die. She would have inherited whatever meager property he had, free and clear. No husband to answer to, no complications. Instead, she performs surgery. In a mud brick cabin, with no electricity, no sterile field, no surgical team, she derides the wound, excises necrotic tissue, sutures layers of muscle and skin, and administers antibiotics, all while managing a body that is weaker than anything she has ever operated in. Why not love, not duty, strategy? She looks at this dying man and sees what nobody else sees. An asset worth saving. A hunter with a warrior's hands and a soldier's instincts. A man with secrets and connections that could be leveraged. A partnership waiting to be formed. That is not cold, that is brilliant. Because Jiayin understands something most people in desperate situations forget. Survival isn't a solo sport. The fastest way out of the bottom isn't climbing alone. It is finding someone strong enough to climb with you and giving them a reason to stay. She saves his leg, he becomes her shield. That is not romance, it is venture capital. She invested her skills into a high-risk asset, and it paid off spectacularly. And then there is the pharmacy scene. The moment Shen Jiayin truly announces herself, a rich merchant drops dead in the middle of Jishi Tang. The local doctor checks his pulse and declares it over. Everyone's crying. The funeral is being planned, and this girl, this orphan, in cheap clothes, shoves past every man in the room, rips open the merchant's robes, and starts doing CPR. Are you insane? Stop hitting the master. They scream. She doesn't stop, she doesn't explain, she just works. And the man breathes again. That scene isn't just about medical skill. It is about the absolute, unshakable conviction that you know something the room doesn't, and the willingness to act on it, even when every voice around you is screaming that you are wrong. In the modern world, we call that founder's conviction, the ability to see what others can't and bet everything on your vision. Jiayin does it with a dying man's chest. Entrepreneurs do it with business plans, Artists do it with blank canvases. The principle is the same when you know you are right. The crowd's opinion is just noise. But here is the detail that makes me love this story most. It is not the palace coup. It is not the cavalry charge. It is the moment Jayin comes home from the market with a new iron wok and a basket full of fresh meat and iron wok. She is just earned 800 taels of silver. She could buy silk robes, jade bracelets, a house in town. Instead, she buys a wok and cooking ingredients because her patient needs protein to heal and the current kitchen setup is inadequate. That is not frugality. That is operational discipline. Every tael of silver goes where it creates the most value. No vanity spending, no emotional purchases. Just cold, efficient capital allocation aimed at the highest return investment available, keeping her primary asset, Xiao Jingyan, alive and functional. That wok is worth more than the gold medallion because the medallion represents wealth achieved. The wok represents the mindset that built it. And finally, the ending. I will share half of this empire with you. Xiao Jingyan doesn't say, I'll give you the empire. He says, share. That word matters because by the time they reach the throne room, Jayin doesn't need anyone to give her anything. She controls half the nation's cash flow. She funded the army that took the capital. She saved the emperor's life with her own hands. She is, by any measurable standard, the most powerful person in the room who isn't wearing a crown. When Jingyan says share, he is not being generous, he is being accurate. He is acknowledging a fact that every person in that throne room can see. This empire has two architects, and neither one could have built it alone. That is the real love story, not the rough embrace or the burning eyes. The quiet mathematical recognition that two people are stronger together than apart, and the mutual respect to never pretend otherwise. 2 questions for you. First, what is your shard of porcelain? When you were at your lowest, hands tied, options gone, everyone counting you out, what was the one small sharp thing you found that let you start cutting yourself free? A skill, a connection, a stubborn refusal to quit. What was it? And do you still carry it? Second, have you ever bought the wok instead of the silk? Made the boring, unsexy, strategically correct investment when every instinct screamed to reward yourself? Chose long-term building over short-term comfort. What did that discipline cost you in the moment? And what did it eventually build? Tell me in the comments. I am Xiao Yu. May every girl on a dirt floor find her shard of porcelain. May every wok outlast every crown. And may every empire, whether it is a business, a family, or a life rebuilt from nothing, be shared equally between the people who bled for it. See you in the next story.